BBC presents My Word. And here to introduce the programme and the panel is Jack Longland.
My Word is a word game played by people whose business is words, and those taking part are Dilys Powell, Nancy Spain, Frank Muir, and Dennis Norton. And here's round one to test their vocabulary, if any. 2 marks each if they can give me the meaning of these words. Dilys Powell, what is or was a Janeite? Janeite.
Well, that's a very literary phrase. It still is, surely.
I think so.
It's somebody who is absolutely mad about Jane Austen.
Absolutely right. An admirer of the works of Jane Austen. 2 marks.
Not
Dennis
me.
Norton. I think this is a tough one, Dennis. What's an about sledge? Just about, and then a hyphen, and then sledge, like sledge. An about sledge.
I think it's strange you should think this is a tough one, Jack. An about sledge is a very well-known manoeuvre executed by the Eskimo Light Infantry. Now, you see, when you turn a sledge, a sledge has no reverse gear. Let's get that absolutely straight. There's no use blinking the fact it has no reverse gear and it has dogs. So if you want to turn a sledge, you've got to make a wide circle. You see, well, at the North Pole it's the pointed end of the Earth, you see, and you can't make a wide circle. An about sledge, obviously, what you do is you pass the sledge over the heads of the dogs, so the dogs are facing the other way. Now, you obviously could pass the dogs over the sledge, but that would require 5 operations, and that is not military.
I'm going to give Dennis 1 mark for sheer ingenuity. It's entirely wrong, but it was a wonderful explanation. It is, in fact, an about sledge is the largest possible kind of hammer used by a blacksmith.
Well, if you're going to quibble over these minor details.
All right, Nancy Spain. What is a Dan? D-A-N.
It's a buoy.
Yes.
You use it when you're mine sweeping. It's an orange buoy on the outside of what they call a Dan sweep. And many, if I may say, is the Dan that I have picked up.
Jolly good. Nancy was a Wren officer, so she
Danny
really does know this
Danny
one.
Kaye.
It's a small buoy, but spelled B-U-O-Y. It can be used in...
Danny Boy.
That's it.
Oh, Danny Kaye.
I give up. But used as a mark in fishing, and it supports a pole which has a flag on by daytime and a lamp on by night. But as Nancy quite rightly says, in wartime, it was the same thing, showing how far a mined channel had been swept, I think, Nancy.
Correct.
2 marks it is. Frank Muir. What is Wertherism, or if you prefer it in my German, Wertherism? W-E-R-T-H-E-R-I-S-M.
Oh, yes.
Wertherism.
Yeah, this is it's quite an old word, isn't it, Jack?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a fascinating word. It was brought to this country by a Phoenician, and he landed in Cornwall, and there was an Anglo-Saxon there who said, I've got half a pound of tin. What have you got? Because he wanted a trade. And he said, I've got Wertherism, you see. And that's how the word came to this country. And nobody has ever really been sure what it means. Eric Partridge has had a go at defining it. He's always game. But nobody has really... Dr. Johnson was going to include it in his dictionary, but he didn't know the meaning. So he put it on one side, hoping that he might have a spare meaning that needed a word, and then he could put the two. But he never did, and nobody's ever known. There is actually several rather spurious explanations, and Jack's got, I'm sure, one written down in front of him. Those are the facts of the case. Now, will not be shouted down.
But Frank, leaving Dr. Johnson on one side just for one moment, what does Frank think about it?
Frank Johnson.
Frank Johnson.
All right, I'm sorry,
Charles
I can't give
Johnson.
any marks for that. It's the hero, a rather sort of curious hero, of Goethe's Sorrows of Werther, and he was a very sentimental type, so that Wertherism, or Wertherism, means morbid sentimentality. Don't you remember, Frank, because we had this once before. Thackeray wrote about this. So he sighed and pined and ogled, and his passion boiled and bubbled, till he blew his silly brains out, and no more was by it troubled. So I'm sorry. No more.
Nonsense.
And that's the end of the first round. Well, before we begin round 2, I give each team a quotation which they can write down if they want. And I want the 2 women members of the team to keep on studying their quotations, and then at the end I shall ask them where those quotations come from. And Dilys Powell, with Frank Muir listening in, your quotation is this: "The die is cast." And then Nancy Spain, with Denis Norton, yours is "Keep right on to the end of the road." And then at the end of the program, I asked Frank and Denis to give me their ideas, which are quite different, of how these words came to be said or written. And I don't want any of these answers just yet. And so round 2. I want to know in what books, by what authors, the following characters appear. Dilys Powell, Smee.
Smee is a pirate. He's a pirate in a play by J.M. Barrie
Yes,
called Peter Pan.
yes. And in the book as well as the play. Yes. One of the nicer pirates, if I remember rightly.
Poor Smee.
Was he?
Yes. He wrote
He was
his
all
book.
right, was he?
No, it was Miserable Starkey. And
Miserable
quite-
Starkey, yes.
And quite nice Smee. All right, 2 marks it is. Denis Norton, Mr. Goldfinger.
Well, that's the Ian Fleming book, Goldfinger.
That's right, yes. He had a curious habit of painting people gold all over, didn't he? I think
Well,
something
for
like
those who like that sort of thing, Jack.
2 marks it is.
Peculiarities, isn't it?
Nancy Spain, Mr. Slope.
Slope?
S-L-O-P-E.
Alley Slope?
No, Obadiah.
Obadiah Slope? Moby Dick? No, it couldn't.
No?
Yes?
No, about the
No.
same time, but not that. Not transatlantic.
Oh, it must be Dickens then.
No, you're not going to get it.
No, I'm not.
No marks. He comes from Barchester Towers by Anthony
Oh.
Trollope. He was the bishop's chaplain who warred with Mrs. Proudie throughout most of the book for the control of the Diocese of Barchester. Frank Muir, Abel Magwitch.
Language. Oh, he wrote A Nightingale Sang in Berkeley Square.
That's Eric Magwitch.
Eric Mashwitz. Abel
Wolf
Mankiewicz was the... he was all bald and huge, and he crept up on...
That's right. Yes,
poor
quite
little
right.
Pip.
Yes.
And the name of the book is by Charles Dickens,
Yes.
the novelist.
He had a... Yes.
Great Expectations.
Yes, absolutely right. He was the escaped convict who helped Pip in Dickens's Great Expectations. 2 marks, well done, Frank. And the next round is poetry and verse. I give each member of each team a quotation and then ask them for the following line or lines to complete it. 2 marks if they complete the quotation reasonably well, and 2 more for saying where it comes from, the author. Beginning with Dilys Powell. The shepherd swains shall dance and sing for thy delight each May morning.
It's not Shakespeare.
Before that, a little.
Before?
Overlapping, but a little before.
Marlowe.
Yes.
And in and out and Maisie Rout, they...
You'll get 2 out of 4 for trying. It's Christopher Marlowe, the passionate shepherd to his love, the last verse. The shepherd swain shall dance and sing for thy delight each May morning. If these delights thy mind may move, then live with me and be my love. Afterwards parodied by Sir Walter Raleigh.
We weren't allowed to read that sort of thing at school. Midshipman Easy and Hall's Algebra and tied off at there.
Well, never too late, Frank. Denis Norton.
I think it is.
He thought he saw an elephant that practiced on a fife.
He looked again and found it was a letter from his wife.
Absolutely right, yes. Couldn't be better.
It
Yes.
may surprise you to know that's right. It surprised me.
Absolutely right. Do you remember who wrote it?
Lewis Carroll,
Yes,
and it's
Sylvie,
Bruno
yeah.
and Bruno and Sylvie.
quite right. Well done, Dennis. 4 marks. He thought he saw an elephant that practiced on a fife. He looked again and found it was a letter from his wife. At length I realized, he said, the bitterness of life. It's Lewis Carroll, Hallucinations from Sylvie and Bruno. Nancy Spain, very different. The blessed damozel leaned out from the gold bar of heaven
There were 3 lilies in her hand, and the stars in her hair were 7. Dante Gabriel Rossetti.
Yes, the blessed damozel leaned out from the gold bar of heaven. Her eyes were deeper than the depth of waters stilled at even. She had 3 lilies in her hand, and the stars in her hair were 7. Dante Gabriel Rossetti, the blessed damozel. Frank Muir. There, take an inventory of all I have, to the last penny, 'tis the king's. My robe and my integrity to heaven is all I dare now call my own.
Nice respectful silence followed that. It's Cardinal Wolsey, Jack.
Yes, quite right. And the play?
It's, eh? The Bard. We think it's Shakespeare.
Yes.
Henry VIII.
Yes. Absolutely right. Now, can you finish it, Frank? 'Cause
No.
it's all right. 2 out of 4. Well done. It's Cardinal Wolsey in Act 3 of Henry VIII by Shakespeare, and it goes like this. Here, take an inventory of all I have to the last penny, it is the king's. My robe and my integrity to heaven is all I dare now call my own. O Cromwell, Cromwell, had I but served my God with half the zeal I served my king, he would not in mine age have left me naked to mine enemies. 2, I think, is fair. Next round is all about French and Latin sayings. I'm going to give you the first half, and for 3 marks, I want you to tell me 3 things. First of all, how the phrase is completed. Second, what its meaning is in English. And third, who said it or wrote it. Beginning with Dilys Powell, and we begin chercher.
La femme.
Yes, that's a good ending. The meaning?
Look for the woman, seek the woman, and it means that Nancy and I are always at the root of the trouble.
Yes, absolutely right. Now, can you give its attribution? Who's supposed to have said it? More difficult.
Dumas.
Dumas. Well done. 3 marks out of 3. Means look for the woman, and if there's any trouble of any kind, you don't have to look very far before you find a woman mixed up in it. And it's attributed to Alexandre Dumas, the father, who said not quite this, but cherchons la femme. Let's look for the women. Other people use
obviously
it.
meant it for another reason.
All right, Dennis Norton. Sic transit.
Gloria Mundi.
Yes?
Sic, thus, transit passes, Gloria, glory, Mundi, of or from the or a world.
Jolly good. Absolutely right. Everything right so far except the author. What about him?
I haven't ventured on the author, so it can't be wrong, can it?
Not yet.
Well, let's keep it that way.
All right, 2 out of 3, Dennis. How quickly the glory of the world passes away, sic transit gloria mundi, and it was by Thomas à Kempis in his book, The Imitation of Christ. Nancy Spain. Mens sana.
In corpore sano.
Yes?
A healthy mind in a healthy or healthier body.
2 marks out of 3, unless you know who wrote it.
Plautus.
No. Said by Juvenal in his satires, and of course by generations of public school headmasters afterwards. 2 out of 3. Frank Muir. Dulci et decorum est.
Nor iron bars a cage. The snag is here that I didn't take Latin. I took deportment instead. It's dulce et decorum. It's pro patria or something or other, and
That's
it
right.
means that it's a really rather splendid thing to die for your country.
Absolutely right, yes. You don't remember the last word, do you? So to help me.
Morai.
Yes, all right.
Yeah.
Dulci et decorum est pro patria morai or mori. To die for the fatherland is a sweet and becoming thing. 2 marks out of 3, unless you know who wrote it.
No.
Horace.
No, he'd be dead anyway. So I wouldn't know him, Jack.
2 out
I
of 3.
may have known of him, but I don't.
It comes in Horace and the Odes 3 to 13. And now we come to the last round and go back to the quotations that I gave to the 2 teams earlier on in the programme. And first of all, for 2 marks, Dilys Powell, can you give me the origin of your quotation, which was, "The die is cast"?
Die is cast. Julius Caesar said
Yes.
it. He said it when he was crossing the Rubicon.
Oh, absolutely right. 2 marks. Julius well done. Julius Caesar, coming back from Gaul and going back into Italy, crossed the boundary stream, which was called the Rubicon, and that meant that he had virtually declared war against his rival Pompey. And so he said, "The die is cast." And now, Nancy Spain, the origin of your quotation, please, which was, "Keep right on to the end of the road."
It's a song sung by Sir Harry Lauder,
Yes?
and I don't know who wrote it. It may
think
well
he
have
wrote
been.
it himself.
Wrote it himself. He
That's
may
right.
well have wrote it himself.
Yes, Sir Harry
I will
Lauder.
sing the remainder, though.
Sir
should
Harry
you wish.
Lauder wrote nearly all his own songs. He found it a bit cheaper, I think. And "Keep right on to the end of the road" is by Sir Harry Lauder, and he sang it too. Well, now I ask Frank and Dennis to tell me their explanation of how these quotations came into being, and on this occasion, the marks will go to whichever unlikely explanation gets the larger amount of applause from you, the studio audience. So back we go to Frank Muir with the quotation, "The die is cast."
Yes, well, it's all right now, because it's going on, my play. After all, it's opening in the Village Hall tomorrow. Every year, I write one of these plays for the Village Dramatic Society to produce. I try and take contemporary problems. In 1959, I wrote one on the subject of loneliness, the man's loneliness, and it's... he was in the garden, at the bottom of a garden, and he slowly turned into a French bean. And it's all a bit rather modern, like this foreign chap, UNESCO, you know, the chairs and so on, where people turn into occasional tables and things. It's quite easy to write, actually. And this chap turned into a French bean and climbed up a 20-foot pole trying to find a mate. I called it the loneliness of the long-distance runner. Then in 61 I had something rather different, and it was a story of graffiti, really. It was a chap who used to write novels on the sides of his house. And the story, it's a musical thing, it's got music in. The girl comes and reads what is facing west. I call it the West Side story. And but it was all very modern, sort of musical, sort of Nouvelle Wagner thing. And it went on extremely well. And this year, I wanted to do something rather different. And I wrote this play about these 2 young people in the boarding house who found life empty. One was a misfit, a Miss Angela fit. She spent all her day in her room eating charcoal tablets to cure her rather knobbly complexion. She was quite young and learning the rules of Mahjong by heart. And along the other end of the landing, there was a fellow who was a master plumber, Master George Plumber. He was a beatnik, really. He just sort of lay there all day on his truckle bed, and he had a rather discouraged-looking beard, which looked as though he'd magnetized his chin and dipped it into iron filings. And it was all sort of... And he was very poor. All he had was what he stood up in. What he sat down in was borrowed, actually. And he never left his room except to go out. And he was... Both of these 2 young people were obsessed with the emptiness of their life. Now, the landlady wanted to dye her curtains purple, and she mixed some dye in the bathroom and left the dye in the basin. And it was perpetual dye, you see, and the light had gone wrong in the bathroom, and both these people went in and washed. It was the end of the month, you see, and when they woke up in the morning, they were dyed purple. They were completely purple, you see. And this is the whole point of my play. This is the first act, you see. Then in the second act, they find that through love, their life is much fuller, and they find each other through themselves. They're drawn together because they're the only 2 purple people, you see. And then they buy a unicycle. There's a whole lot more, but we're only doing the first 2 acts. And the play was ready to go on, and none of my actors would allow themselves to be dyed, you see, because it's perpetual. I called the play, actually, the longest die. But unfortunately, I seem to be terribly out of luck with my titles, because there's already a film out with a similar sort of title. These things get pinched from you, you know. So I just call it The Die, you see. And I can't get anybody to play these purple actors. I've advertised for purple actors, but I couldn't find any. And suddenly I had a wonderful idea. So I got my cast rehearsing one evening, and I remembered I whipped into the dressing room and I removed the lamp that hung over the wash basin, and I poured purple dye into the wash basin, and it worked. Although they were terribly angry, you know, and they cursed the day, but the cast was dyed, and the die is cast.
Well, he got out in the end somehow. I didn't know how. We come back to Denis Norton, and Denis's quotation was, "Keep right on to the end of the road."
You've heard of people who've got no sense of direction. Well, I have what you might call a sense of non-direction. Now, what I mean is that whenever I drive anywhere, it's sort of war between intellect and instinct. My intellect tells me that I'm on the right road, but my instinct says it doesn't feel like the right road. So I go on another road, and I get lost. I once took 6 months to get from London to Stonehenge. I'll tell you how it happened. I can't quite remember why I was going to Stonehenge. I think it was in a fit of pique. I do get fits of pique, generally with children. And I say to them, if you do that again, you'll drive me to Stonehenge. And they do it again. You see, and Dr. Spock says, if you promise a child something, you should always do it. But they are too young to be able to drive, so I have to drive myself to Stonehenge, which was how I got on the road to Stonehenge that night. Now, I had a map. I'd looked at a map, and the map had said, to get to Stonehenge, you go through Andover. Fair enough. Drove for about 2 hours, driving along quite merrily in the car, playing my little car games, which we all have. Mine, I stick out my lower lip and pretend I'm Jean-Paul Belmondo. Or my upper lip, pretend I'm Frank Muir. It isn't. Well, and suddenly, I came to a fork in the road. Now, we discarded this type of joke years ago. The road split into 2 parts, you see. And the question was, which one should I take, the right or the left? Well, now, my intellect said, take the right. But my instinct said, it doesn't feel right. Take the right, take the left. I took the left. Being a wild, untamed creature of instinct, I took the left. Now, about 87 miles further on, I suddenly realized I hadn't passed through any place that looked like Andover. In fact, I hadn't passed through any place at all. And I decided I must do that thing which any motorist would rather drive 8 hours than do, that is, ask somebody. Well, there was nobody to ask. It was late at night, but there was a little transport cafe nearby. So I pulled up there, and I went inside, and there behind the counter was an elderly man who was taking some money from the till and putting it in a blue paper bag. So I walked up to him, and I said, Andover. And he sort of shrunk back, you see, apparently not understanding me, so I repeated. I said, Andover, please. And he seemed to go all to pieces. He said, Donna hurt me. Donna touch me, my Maria, she is sick. Take, but go. And he thrust this blue bag into my hands and pushed me out. Well, I was driving on, rather puzzled about this, when suddenly, in the rearview mirror, I saw these flashing headlights, a dark blue car, some kind of police car. It pulled us down the road, out jumped these 2 chaps, and one of them says, All right, now, my lad. The game's up. Come on, you're rotten. You're rotten dead leg. He says, come on, back to station. So I said, I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about. I'm on the way to Stonehenge. So the other one said, I'll tell that to Inspector Barlow. He said, what's this then? And he pulled up this blue... I got 6 months. Which is why I say to anybody now, if you are going to Stonehenge, don't make my mistake. When you get to that fork in the road, keep right onto the Andover Road.
Well, I think by your vote, Dennis Norden wins on that story, and that brings us to a final score in which Dilys Powell had Frank Muir nevertheless win by 4 marks from Nancy Spain and Dennis Norden, and it also brings to an end this edition of My Word.
In My Word, you heard Dilys Powell, Nancy Spain, Frank Muir and Dennis Norden, introduced by Jack Longland. The program was devised by Tony Shryan and Edward J. Mason and presented by the BBC.